Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UPNradio.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Limit Free Life Show. I'm your host, Michelle Perkins, and we are here today from the beautiful Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California. And we are here every Wednesday at 1 o'clock to bring you fantastic interviews with wonderful guests who are talking about how they have created or are creating a really limitless life, a life where they are finding fulfillment, fun, and financial prosperity in what they are doing. We talk a lot about work. We talk about career transition. We talk about business growth and development. And we talk about money because money is a part of all of that. And so we talk a lot about money mindset as well and how you can improve your money mindset and develop a great relationship with money. So without further ado, I am so excited today. I have a fabulous guest, Miss Adey-Jones, and she is here to talk about some really interesting things that I'm going to guess you haven't heard about before. So it's quite unique what she does, and she is a practitioner of some really interesting work that she's going to tell us about. So I'm going to tell you a little about her, and then we're going to get started. First, I'm going to put my glasses on. Adey-Jones is an accomplished transformational coach. She's a 3 principles teacher and practitioner and a co-host of another show here at UBN called Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. Her show is on UBN Radio TV, and it's on Tuesdays. I'll let her tell us exactly when. And she's based in Malibu, California. Gaining her coaching qualifications from the University of Santa Monica, the Ford Institute, and Pransky and Associates, Del's focus is on assisting her clients in achieving healthy psychological well-being in all areas of their lives, regardless of their external circumstances. Del enjoys working with a wide range of clients, from teens to their parents to recovering addicts to top executives. She roots her practice in the understanding of human psychological functioning, known as the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. She believes that we are all masters of our own universe and that we create our experience of life moment by moment, thought by thought. Once we recognize the inside-out versus the outside-in nature of life, we can then be free to create the life we truly desire. Thanks to her unconventional childhood, growing up in the UK, her former career in Hollywood, and her personal challenges, including a divorce and raising children as a single parent, Del's practice is informed both by the empathy gained from real-life experience and her deeper studies of spirituality and human psychology. Using her relatable approach to coaching and her commitment to creating a safe space for her clients, she continues to serve a wide range of clients, both locally and remotely worldwide. So, Del, thank you so much for being here. I am thrilled to have you here today. Where to start?
Yes,
I think
where to start.
I always like to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So if you can just go back and tell us about your background and then how you got to this point, because I know this is a real evolution that is inspired by your life.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So basically, as you can tell from my accent, I grew up in the UK. I came here when I was 21. And when I got here, I found myself at the Bodhi Tree, which was an incredible, inspirational, spiritual bookshop. Mm-hmm. And I was a mess, putting it politely. I just wasn't handling life very well. And I needed answers. I just felt that I'd had a very challenging childhood on many levels. And at one point when I was about 19, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to stay around. I was just didn't feel that I was equipped to deal with life. And so I've been on this journey of whether you'd say self-improvement or understanding myself for, I'm going to be 60 in a couple of months. So it's almost 40 years I've been on this journey.
Wow.
And I have to say that of all the different modalities that I've had 30 years of therapy, which was amazing. And adore my therapist. He was incredible. But it was, and I've done so many other things too along the way. As you mentioned, I have a degree, a master's in spiritual psychology, and I've trained with numerous different people, Debbie Ford, and many, many others. But it was really when I came across the 3 principles that my life started to make sense in a way that it just hadn't before.
Very
So,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. And how did you come across it? Because I, too, love personal development and read a lot and feel fairly knowledgeable about things. But this was new to me, too. And
Yes,
so I was so excited when we talked about it because it was fascinating. I found it to be so interesting. The way you described it was great. So I can't wait for you to describe it to the listeners. But there's a simplicity to it. But there's also a real, then I went away after having heard you talk about it, and I realized the complexity of it as far as the implementation.
It is, and it's also complex when you try and describe it. I mean, most people say it's so simple, yeah, it's so hard to describe. And that is our ongoing challenge with this understanding. I'll give you a little bit of a background on it before I tell you, I'll tell you rather how I came across it, and then I'll give you background on it.
Okay.
So it was well, actually, the first time I came across it was, even about 11 or 12 years ago. Okay. But it wasn't called the 3 principles when I read about it. It was a situation I was in, just the worst mental state at the time. I was going through a divorce. It was just the acknowledgement that we were heading for a divorce. And I was on a plane returning from Spain to visit my sister, and my thoughts were just driving me crazy. And I had a layover in London, and I knew that I couldn't take a sleeping pill or I couldn't have a drink. I needed to navigate the Heathrow airport. So I just was very aware that my thoughts were driving me crazy and I couldn't get away from them. And I just felt so helpless. I was in this really revved up state of dysfunctional thinking and just awful catastrophizing and just negative of thoughts. And I got to the airport and I was in a bookshop and this book just jumped out of the shelf at me. You know how they do, where the sort of binder just pops out and you're like, wow, that's for me. And it said, Stop Thinking, Start Living. And it was by Richard Carlson before he wrote Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I was like, oh my God, that my thinking is driving me nuts right now. There might be something in this. And I read it and I ended up not sleeping from London to LA. I finished the book and I felt so much better after it. And I thought, wow. And it gave me some tools. But again, as I say, it didn't reference the 3 principles, so I had nowhere else to go after that. It was a great foundation. I recommended it to so many people. So then fast forward about 2 years ago, I was talking to one of my USM alumni, and they mentioned the 3 principles.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, what's that? And she started to describe it, and I was like, I know this. I've read about this. And so that just, and knowing how impactful it was all those years ago when I first read about it, I was like, I immersed myself into it. And so really for the last 2 years, I've been on an accelerated course of really deepening what we say, that deepening the grounding in this understanding.
Nice.
So basically people say to me, well, what are the 3 principles? They think they're going to be like, what are the 4 agreements? I'm going to give you 3 rules to live life by, and it's not that.
Okay.
The 3 principles are called mind, consciousness, and thought, or thought, consciousness, and mind, or whatever order you want to put them in.
Okay.
No, and then people say, well, what does that mean? And I've learned to not give the definition of what mind, consciousness, and thought means, because it keeps people in their head. It keeps them trying to intellectually understand it. So what I'd rather do is sort of describe what it means rather than, thought is this, mind is this, consciousness is this. We can all dialogue about consciousness and we can all dialogue about, very briefly, mind. When we say mind, it's not referring to our small personal mind. It means the energy behind life. So, and then thought. Clearly, thoughts come through us. Hundreds of them a day. And there's personal thought, and there's this fresh thought that comes through us. And then consciousness again is just our awareness of what it is that we are, experiencing.
Right.
And consciousness can go up and down again,
Right.
you know.
Do you think that it's that awareness piece that most people are missing? I mean, are most people aware of their thoughts and what's happening?
Well, what it is that Trinity, as we say, is the human. That's how we all work. Just like gravity works, we're all working within that paradigm of the thought, consciousness, and mind.
Okay.
So, but what people are unaware of is what I like to call the inside-out understanding of life.
Okay.
And that is where you'll really get to understand more about what I'm talking about rather than focusing on those 3 words. So
Okay.
now we've mentioned the 3 words.
All right, so
Put
we're
them
just gonna
aside.
put them aside. We
Put
know
them
what they
aside.
are.
Exactly. So really what they point to is this, what we call the understanding of the inside-out nature of life. And most of us, you know, as human beings, we very innocently believe that, you know, the world is, I talk with my hands, so I know I'm going to knock this mic everywhere here. So we tend to think that the world is happening outside of us. And we are basically just experiencing this world we live in. We tend to think that the world is the same for everybody. And, you know, that all our feelings and emotions are a direct result of something that's happening in the world that is outside of us.
Absolutely.
So
Right.
that's called the outside-in version of thinking about life. We feel a victim, you know, sometimes like, you know, well, I feel bad because this and this and this happened. Or I feel great because this and this and this happened. Like, you know, I feel great because, you know, I just found a ton of money.
Yeah.
Or I just met the man of my dreams.
Right.
Or, you know, I just lost 10 pounds. I mean, it could be anything. We can think it's all outside of us that is creating this feeling of either well-being in us or creating our sadness. Like, you know, I'm sad because my boyfriend just dumped me, or I lost my job, or, you know, there's a million things that can make you feel, or angry. I'm angry because this person said something.
Right.
But it's, again, it's all, we are just trained from young children to believe that our emotional reaction is entirely due to what is happening in the outside world.
Well, which also leads to people, the way they plan their life is, you know, when that happens, then I'll be happy.
Well, exactly.
And,
They're handing their power completely to these outside events. Like you said, I'll be happy when, you know, when I have that money in the bank, when I have the ring on my finger, when I have all the jewelry in the world, or the, you know, flashy sports car, or whatever it is that we're feeling is the source of our happiness. Or again, when I divorce my husband, who is the source of my unhappiness right now.
Right.
Or, you know, I'll be less stressed when my kids pay attention and clean their room. Whatever it is that we are attributing to the outside. So anyway, so that's the outside in. But what we teach is that, or point to rather, which, and when you point to it, most people go, oh my God, of course that makes sense. But we somehow are not aware of it. But we point to the fact that all of our experiences in life are a direct result of the thought that we're having in that moment.
Right.
So I'm not saying that something doesn't happen outside of us. Something can happen, but there is sort of an in-between, man. There's the thought. And it's the thought is so, the emotion that follows that thought is so fast that sometimes we think that emotion is because of what's out there, where it's really, the emotion is a reaction to the thought we're having.
Right. Right.
So we have, I mean, some scientists say anywhere from 25,000 to 100,000. You can even, some people report.
Right. I've said thoughts per day.
Per day.
Yeah, I always
exactly.
hear 60,000. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
how anybody figured that out. I don't know.
I know
but-
exactly. And it fluctuates, different scientific things. But what they're pointing to is that we have these hundreds of thoughts running through us a day. Random, we have no control over what thought pops into our head. I mean, some of them can be really wonderful thoughts, like, wow, you look like hot shit today. Or they can be like, you suck. I mean, who do you think you are? And the point that we make is it's not that we can control those thoughts. We can't. But we do have free will as to how seriously we take them.
Right.
And how much energy we give them.
Right.
Because a lot of us believe that if we have this habitual thinking of you're not good enough, or who are you to think you can do this, that must mean something about us. We take it personally.
Right.
Especially if those thoughts keep showing up, then it really is because I am that way. Not realizing that they're up for everybody to take.
Yeah.
They flow through everybody.
Right.
Some of us, because of our habitual thinking, might hang on to some of those negative thoughts longer than other people.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I as I said, I had a challenging childhood where I grew up without a father, that he lived a few miles down the road and he never spoke to us or acknowledged us. So my thinking as a child, because I didn't know any better, I didn't know the 3 Ps back then. Now I would just say, hey, you know, that's just a thought. But back then I made it mean something about me. So that was the lens I was looking through at life through, which is there's something wrong with me. If I had been prettier, cleverer, skinnier, something, he would have noticed me. And so that was the thinking that I had, my habitual thinking.
Right.
So when I would get insecure thoughts coming in, I just believed that they were true,
Right.
that they were part of me. And now I don't. I actually have the ability to say, oh my gosh, that thought's come in and visited again. Is it useful?
And how liberating is that? That was the really big impetus. I mean, partly because I know you and love you, but also just for people on the show, you know, Limit-Free Life is about liberating yourself from these thoughts almost more than anything.
Yes,
I think.
It really is, and it's very different from positive psychology, which I also studied, which actually depressed me when I realized I had to rate how many positive versus negative thoughts I was having. It was so funny, but with this understanding, we don't judge the thoughts. We just know that it's natural to have random thoughts. Some of them stick around longer than others, like I say, and I think it's something to do with our survival instinct.
Yeah.
We pay more attention to the negative thoughts because if we can understand them or control them or whatever it is, we think we'll have less of them.
Right. We think we'll somehow prevent some disaster
exactly.
or something. Yeah.
So what with this understanding is we don't judge them. We don't try and manipulate them. We don't try and turn them into positive thoughts.
Right.
We just know that they're going to pass. And the quicker they pass, the quicker we let them go and don't judge them and don't try and do anything with them, the faster they'll pass.
That's a huge point, because there are people who would start being aware of their thoughts, but then start beating themselves up for having a lot of negative thoughts, which is a whole other path.
Totally. And again, beating themselves up, or believing that they mean something about them.
Right. Right.
I think, we're basically making shit up anyway. Excuse my language. We're making stuff up. So if you're going to make stuff up, make up good stuff, I
know. And I think, I could go down a huge, long path, and I'm not going to, but, the more people have these kind of thoughts and start thinking of themselves and judging those thoughts, I think the more they lean toward feeling like they need some kind of, either help from a drug or something, and that too might not be true.
They feel helpless. They feel that the only way they're going to quell those negative thoughts is to have a drink or to zone out or watch TV or to stuff those feelings down that come along with those thoughts with food or anything like that, or any addiction for that matter.
Right.
But if we just know that they're just going to pass on their own, because the point is, what I wanted to say is, just like the physical body, we think that we heal ourselves by taking pills and, putting Band-Aids and cream on a wound, or putting a broken leg in a cast. We believe that we're healing ourselves by that, but it's the body heals itself.
Yeah.
We just help it along by not interfering, by lining those bones up correctly, or by putting a Band-Aid on and not picking at a scab. Our body heals itself, and the same thing goes for our psychological well-being. Our set point, you only have to look at a little child, like a 3-year-old. Right. That child will run through the gamut of emotions, but they will always end up very quickly coming back to that place of laughter. You don't see a young 3-year-old sort of ruminating and worrying about the future and holding a grudge against mum or dad for what they did. Right. They roll through their emotions very fast, and they will totally naturally come back to that place of what we call innate well-being that exists within all of us.
Right.
And the only thing that takes us away from that is when we spend too much time judging and analyzing our thinking. Because,
Yeah,
a lot of people
right.
will go, well, where did that thought come from? Oh, boy, that thought came from when I was a young child and this happened to me and this. That just locks that in.
Right.
And the more that you put yourself in that space and the more important you make that thought, the longer you stay in that suffering.
Yeah, kind of begs the question. This isn't where I was going to go either, but
It's okay, we're going to go all over the
yeah.
place.
But in therapy, which I believe in therapy,
Yes.
I had plenty of it. But you do spend a lot of time looking back and
Yeah.
going over, certain things and staying in those thoughts of
Yes.
what happened to you in the past.
Yeah, and and I won't. I mean, a lot of 3P practitioners will say, don't go to therapy. I'm not going to knock it because I needed it, and it definitely helped me in my life. But I still felt I was swimming in the same
Little circular motion. Yeah.
And it was truly when I found out about the principles and really got deeply involved in them. Or this understanding that, basically my emotions, I'm a direct result, or my experience of life is a direct result from the thought I'm having in the moment. I could let go of so much stuff.
Right.
And things I
Right.
would have normally said, I've got to see my therapist, I've got to talk about this.
Right.
I would actually catch myself saying, why do you need to talk about it? It was just a thought.
Yeah.
And I
interesting.
just relaxed, and I was able to resolve so many things myself without having to, go to therapy.
Well, I love the idea that therapy probably helps you even figure out what there is to let go of.
Yes.
So that there's a place for that for sure.
Without a doubt, exactly.
But there's a point at which you want to stop the circular
Well, if
pattern.
you find yourself, and everybody's different, and that's the thing. I mean, I want to talk about something called the world of the form and the formless, because it's really important to understand who we are at our core. And as Pierre de Chardin, the French philosopher said, and we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, rather than, the other way around. Hang on,
Right.
human beings having a spiritual experience.
Right.
Like on a Sunday, we're spiritual. But the reality is, we are at our base, at our core, we are spiritual beings.
Okay.
And that we refer to as the world of the formless. That's the energy behind life, the intelligence behind life, the whatever you want to call it, spirit, universe, God. It's that's the level at which every single one of us is connected.
Right.
It's like the ocean.
Okay.
We're all part of the ocean.
Right.
Even though there might be these lovely little individual waves,
Right,
human
right.
beings are the individual little waves that come out of that ocean. But at our core, we all come from the same energy. And it's at that core that we are all completely and utterly equal.
I love that.
We
Yeah.
have
Okay.
at that level, we all have access to the same wisdom, the same guidance, the same inspiration. I mean, it's different for each one of us. It manifests differently. But that pool from
Right.
which we draw from is the same pool that everybody has access to.
Okay.
So nobody is better than, worse than.
Right.
I mean, clearly, once we sort of manifest into the form, which is the physical world,
Okay.
then obviously we look a little different. Some of
Right.
us are taller, shorter, fatter, thinner, blue eyes, brown eyes, whatever you want.
Right.
And some of us have, sort of physical disabilities or handicaps we have to deal with. But at our core, we are all completely equal. And I used to get that on an intellectual level
Right.
before I understood the principles, but
Okay.
I never really embodied it. And now I completely embody that. I know that I am equal to everybody else. And having been, growing up illegitimate, that word illegitimate, you are not legitimate. Well, I felt very different from other people. I felt like I wasn't worthy.
Right.
And I wasn't legitimate.
Yeah, it's a
So-
terrible
Yeah, it is,
term
isn't it?
Now that it's not really used anymore. Thank
No, I
God.
know.
But
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Well, back when I was born, it was used, and there were
Yeah,
some
right.
B words in there too.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But when I found the principles is when I really, really got that, oh my God, it's not a concept, it's actually a feeling. We are all connected, we're all one, we all have access to that brilliance.
Right. Okay.
So there was a reason why I was getting there, and I forgot. Oh, self-confidence. I used to think that, self-confidence in anything, work, life,
Right.
that had to be obtained from the outside. If I did a few more things,
Right.
gained a few more qualifications,
Right.
that I would gain confidence. And it was only when I realized that I truly am connected at that level with everybody else that I just stopped that doing
Yeah.
from the outside.
Right.
We all have that amazing capacity for whatever it is, well-being, as I said, inspiration, everything is inside of us.
Right.
So when you realize that, you don't keep having to look outside at doctors and therapists and other people to tell you how to improve yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why I always say my type of coaching, or as a practitioner, is my job is to keep directing you back to who you are on the inside and that incredible wisdom that lays within you.
Right.
So we don't give advice. We don't, strategize how to achieve this goal so that when you achieve this, you're going to feel really good about yourself.
Right.
It's much more of an internal journey.
Yeah. So it really, truly is about kind of a base level of well-being.
Yeah.
And from there, you do whatever you want. If you have big goals, if you have small goals, if you have no goals, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, as Sid Banks' wife, widow, said to me, she said, with this understanding, we could all very happily live under a freeway bridge, but would we want to? No.
Right.
But what we understand is that our happiness and our sense of confidence and well-being doesn't come from the outside. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
And
that's a huge, I think that's a huge help for people to,
It really
to
is.
realize that, because of course we don't all have access to outside things, but we all have
Yeah.
access to ourselves.
Exactly.
So,
That's
yeah.
exactly true. And I think Western culture, we keep thinking it's the things that make us happy.
Absolutely.
I fostered a little boy for a while, about 3 months. He was here with an organization called Mending Kids. And people kept saying to me, "Oh my God, how could you send him back? How could you send him back to his family in the poverty?" And I was like, "Oh my God, your values are so..." What's to say that things are better than love and connection to family? And,
Right.
yes, it's, we have a level of comfort here, which is wonderful. But to place that ahead of that beautiful feeling of love and connection and contentment and happiness that comes from within, it's doing everybody a disservice, I believe.
I would totally agree with you. It's a really interesting thing to look at, because in a lot of ways, maybe it's easier to look to outside things. I don't know.
Well, I just think we innocently do.
I think you're right.
I don't think anybody's, it's just innocently, we just keep attributing our feelings to the outside world. And it's so fast, as I say, we have this, something that we perceive or think of as bad happens. We don't even notice the thought. We just go, "Oh, I feel terrible.
Right.
It must be because of that."
Right.
Or I feel really good. But it's like a new car. You know how great you feel for the first few months of a new car? and you think it's the new car that's making you feel that way.
Right.
Well, it's just the thoughts about the new car. And then as another thought comes in and you stop having those thoughts, it sort of wears off.
Right. So I keep thinking about, because it's conceptually, again, it's simple, but when you start really living when you leave and you go out and you live your life after you've listened to this, you find all the things that come up, and they're not easy to deal with necessarily.
Exactly.
So,
and I mean, I call them the yeah buts. Yeah, but this doesn't apply to this.
Right.
And I could have gone through that with, my mother passed away earlier this year, and she was the third person in the space of 8 months in my family to pass away. And I really was, it took a beating on me at that point. I felt like it wasn't even my thinking. I felt my body was depressed. But even in that situation, I can look at that, and as being one of 7 children, we all experienced her passing differently to varying degrees. And so I could say, well, of course I'm sad because my mother passed away.
Right.
But then I go, well, wait a minute, everybody else is experiencing varying degrees of sadness and shock and not so much. And she was 91. She lived lived an incredible life. She was so loved. But what I realized was I felt sad when I thought about what I didn't have. So it's my thinking, the loss. Right. But when I sort of, and again, it wasn't deliberate, but I started to have feelings of, oh my gosh, she's just slipped from the world of form into the formless. And now I can have her any time I want because her energy's around me. She doesn't have to get on a plane, or I don't have to get on a plane.
Right.
And as I started sort of having more of those thoughts, again, not trying to manipulate them or choose them, they just started coming through. I just had the most incredible, graceful way of going through that transition that a lot of people said to me, oh, this is going to be so bad. This is going to be the worst. This, you know. And as she was my only parent, I was anticipating it would take me down, but it didn't. And it really, truly didn't. So, you know, this understanding not only helps on some incredible levels, just even dealing with my children.
Right.
I mean, it's remarkable how, you know, they might say something and I might, the old me would have gone into my chuntering of, well, you know, how could they say that to me? Because I give them this and that. And, you know, and I could start whipping myself up in this, I call them thought storms. And now I just catch myself and I say, really? Are you going to put that much energy on that? It was just a, you know, I could be misinterpreting the intensity of what was said or the way something was said, and I just let things go. And if my children, I just want to say that if my children actually have snapped, because I don't react, they will actually catch themselves and they will say, gosh, Mum, I'm so sorry I snapped then. I'll go, oh, it's fine, it was fine. It's okay.
Oh, I love that, because you don't continue the chain of reaction.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't become defensive and picky.
Right.
And so therefore in that silence, I'm not saying sulky silence, I'm just saying silence of not reacting, it gives the other person opportunity to reflect on, gosh, was I a little harsh when I said that? Do I need to make amends?
Yeah, very interesting.
I know.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, when you're going through something like that, are you starting to think some of the, you know, habitual thoughts and then stopping yourself and being aware that you want to just change those thoughts, dismiss those thoughts? What's the process?
Well, you know, people say that. How do you keep reminding yourself? What are the tools? What are the techniques? Well, there are zero tools.
I'm sorry,
I know.
I'm one of those people wanting the tools.
I did 2 years of USM. We had every tool. I used to have my rattling toolbox with me when I'd do coaching. It would be, oh my God, like let me get this tool out, that tool. Now I just, you know, I'm so present because I'm not thinking about that. Because again, you know, you're always connected to that inner wisdom and guidance.
Okay.
And we have a built-in like alarm system. So if you're feeling good, there's nothing to do. Just carry on feeling good.
Right.
Now, if you're feeling a bit, you know, caught up or upset, that's just your internal system to check where your thinking is at.
Okay.
And that's not to say that there aren't things or events happening in life that you need to wake up to and say, is this okay or not? Like I used the example the other day that, you know, if you're in an abusive marriage, now if you're not feeling good and you're feeling this is abusive, and you can sit quiet with that feeling, you will get fresh thought and wisdom to come forward that will say, well, how about you do this or you do that or whatever.
Right. So now, doing is still a part of this.
Absolutely.
It's not like you don't do, you just think better thoughts about the abusive husband.
Exactly. No, not at all. But you get clear thought, fresh wisdom coming up through you, guidance, inner guidance. Now, if you're a panicked person and you're just in your head, which is like a computer, it's like a, it's a hard drive. It just has old experience and deals with fear and things like that. If you're stuck in this thought storm, I'll use my little thing here. So this is a clear mind. This is what it looks like when you are quite beautiful with a little Buddha in there.
It is beautiful.
But a quiet mind and a clear mind, you will get these incredible guidance. And you will know what to do.
Okay.
But if you're in a thought storm, which is, like clouds covering the sun. The sun is always there, but sometimes you don't see the sun shining because you've got all these thoughts that are running through. That's a thought cluster, or a cluster F, as sometimes they're known as. So anyway, when we're human beings, it's just naturally our human conditioning. We are just thinking. There's no clarity there.
Right.
There's no room for fresh thought.
Right.
For inner guidance. Nothing can come through.
Right.
So it's like meditation in a way. The quieter we are, the more we don't attach to those thoughts and control them or judge them. And we just let them float by as you would in meditation. And quiet the mind. That's when you will hear the guidance that's right for you.
And the right answers.
And the right answers for you.
And is that confusing, or is it so intuitive that you know that answer is right, or do you have to think that through? Or
I think it feels different.
Okay.
And
so it becomes more of a feeling.
It becomes more of a feeling. And that's why we say the 3 principles. That's why we really discourage people from trying to analyze what the words mean.
Right.
We say, go for the feeling and marinate yourself. I mean, just like you listen to music, you don't go, oh, God, there's that note and there's that note, and then that word came. We just enjoy it. We enjoy the feeling.
Right. Right.
And that's what we say with this inside-out understanding. And again, it's also known as resilience coaching. And it's not that we toughen up and have resilience against things. It just means that resilience is the ability to bounce back.
Right.
So we're going to, I can have a bad mood. I still have them all the time. They just don't grip me and they don't stay around as long. But I just know, and I witness in myself, that I bounce back so much quicker than I used to. I used to ruminate. I was a grudge holder.
Right. Yeah, and I think, I see that all the time. I have a family full of people who are overthinkers, and you can see where that takes them. And it doesn't take them to great solutions. It just takes them down these paths of negativity
and confusion,
upset,
anxiety, depression.
Anxiety,
yeah,
absolutely.
huge.
And it makes me really wonder if so much of society's current anxiety epidemic is so much about being, too connected with too many thoughts. And,
exactly, because we think they're real. We think that what we're thinking is real, and we've got to sort of manage and handle the world of chaos and confusion, whereas if we realize that we're just one thought away from a different experience.
Right.
I mean, we really, truly are. And we don't have to think our way there. It's going to happen naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, and with today's world, there's just too much input. There's too much stimulation. And so the thoughts are just, it's magnified in our head.
Absolutely.
Thoughts about everything.
Well, especially with the internet and TV,
Right.
we're watching, the way our psychology is designed, we were, to be sort of little communities next to the river, in some really simple, village. And now we just, everything's global. So what a village would experience in a year, maybe a little flooding, maybe a little, whatever, or a death,
Right.
But now it's like every day we're bombarded with, we hear death every day. We hear destruction every day. We hear war every day. Our psyches are not built for that.
That's right. Yeah, and I think especially for younger people, we can kind of reflect back on what it used to be, and we can compare and contrast and say, oh, maybe, I better stay away from some of this negativity. But I think for younger people growing up, they've never known anything else.
My son,
really
one of my
hard.
sons said that. He said, do you realize that, he's 21 right now, and he said, we've always grown up with terrorism.
Yes.
And because he can consciously only remember just to around sort of 9/11, he 17 years ago, he's 4 years old. That's his first, he says, one of his very first memories is the 9/11. I think, God, how terribly sad.
I know. And not only did they experience it, but they saw it because, everybody sees everything now.
Exactly.
And so it's so funny because I, too, have a 21-year-old as of a week ago. And he has been starting to be very aware because he's been a really, a phone addict for his whole life since he got his first one. And but he's just now realizing the idea of, the types of thoughts that he has from being so on that phone all the time, and really kind of trying consciously to push it away a little bit and do some other things.
The guide is do I feel good right now?
Yes.
That's the only guide you need.
I know.
If you don't feel good, check the quality of your thinking. That really is it. I mean, there's no other way to do it. It's simple as that. That's the only technique that I ever say to anybody. That alarm system of I don't feel good is just letting you know that you're off track.
Right.
And that's not to say that there aren't external circumstances, but by getting quiet and quietening your mind, you will get that the answers as to what to do, what step to take next.
Right. Right. Yeah, I really love that. So instead of going straight from I don't feel good, what can I do about it?
Yeah. Instead of going, what can I do about my external world? Like, I don't feel good right now. Let me have a drink. I don't feel good right now.
Let me write this email to this person I'm upset with.
Yes, exactly. Blaming them for how I'm feeling. Yeah, it's really just going, okay, is my thinking trustworthy right now? And don't go into the history of where it's coming from, why it's coming, but just double check. Because just as much as we're all living in our own separate realities, just as much as our experience of life is created from the thinking we're having, everybody else on the planet is the same.
Right.
So there's no real out there. There's external events.
Right.
But knowing that it's so much of our own interpretation of that and the lens, the glasses we're looking through, it's the same for other people.
Right.
So what we end up doing is instead of sort of forcing them to see our reality, we just accept that, hey, they're seeing their own reality here.
Right.
You know, do I really have a right to sort of insist they see my reality?
Right. Yeah, I think that's huge. Even on its own, just to understand that everybody is seeing things a little differently than you are. I mean, that's so simple, but it helps a lot.
And it helps in everything. It helps in, as I say, our relationships, our parenting.
Right.
And it also helps in the work environment. I mean,
absolutely.
If, when we're at work and we just think everybody should see what we're seeing because we think it's out there. And so, I mean, I used to do that. I was definitely guilty of that. I was like, how could you possibly see it that way? Don't you see this?
Right.
Like it was real.
Yeah, and I think it worked too. We never have time to stop and have the whole conversation about how do you see it? Well, I see it this way. And I mean, everything's pretty deadline driven and everything else. And we just want it to go a certain way.
And I did want to talk about work a bit here because,
Yes.
I've done some work with some organizations where, they felt that they, to be creative and productive, they needed to be high stressed. And again, it's like, I'm sorry, it's this,
For those who can't see, she's shaking the snow globe.
Exactly. But that's, when we have deadlines and we keep going like this and trying to think and think and think and think, nothing fresh and new can come in.
Right.
And that's why people go, oh my God, I got this brilliant idea when I was in the shower or when I was driving on the freeway. It's those bubbles of fresh thought and wisdom that are coming up when we're not forcing it.
Right.
So that's another reason why just quiet the mind.
So allow clear thought to come through.
Yeah, new thought, fresh thought. And that's the co-creation too.
Right.
Because when we're in our heads, it's just that's our ego. That we're like, we can figure this out. We forget that we're actually connected to the master computer.
Right.
We are connected to the life source. We have everything at our disposal when we get out of our ego and reconnect with that beautiful, incredible wisdom that flows through all of us.
Oh, I love that. That's a beautiful way to wrap up because we're almost out of time. That's just a beautiful thought. And for people who feel like, well, I need to be responsible for myself, you're still responsible for yourself, but this is you're just really you're collaborating with the
universe,
infinite wisdom out there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it's not as lonely.
That's a beautiful point too.
No, exactly. It's a co-creation. It's a co-collaboration. You're never alone, and you have all the support that you need.
Okay. So. Well, I love that, and it's just it's an amazing way to live your life. It does take some practice and some understanding. So if you can tell people how they can find you to get
yeah.
that help?
You can find me at my website, Adey-Jones.com. And this doesn't take years of therapy. I mean, I immerse myself in it. I have mentors and teachers just because I love being around it. I love the feeling. And I just love the deepening of the grounding. But the concept, I mean, you can get it like that. I mean, people, you don't have to, have years of waiting for that sort of enlightenment experience to happen. You can just see the fundamentals of what this is talking about and what we're pointing you to. And it can impact your life in every single way. We use this a lot with in prisons, with gangs, in schools, in addiction centers. This is having, it's been around since the 70s. But again, it's nothing new. All the sort of spiritual teachings, it's all reminiscent of this. It's just what this is. It's boiled down to its essence. It's simplified so that everybody can understand it. But again, you might want some sort of ongoing support.
I think I know because when I talked to you, I went home and I was all inspired, and then things would happen, just in daily life, or challenges would come up, and I would want a little help, I think, with, okay, what do I do with this particular situation?
Yeah.
So I think people definitely...
Yeah, some people get it overnight. I mean, they just get it. I was a slow one. It took me a while because I had a lot going on in my life that I kept saying, yeah, but this doesn't apply to this. Right. And so as these things were coming up, I was, so talking it through with somebody was really, really helpful to me. Right.
Yes. Well, it's a wonderful practice. I
Thank you.
See how, transformational it really is. And all it can do is help you to... if you do have big goals, it's gonna really help you to achieve what you want to achieve in life. So,
yes, absolutely.
In a calm
without
state.
That gripping of I have to achieve this to feel good. We feel so good that naturally things just start unfolding, and you're just listening to that inner guidance, and you're just on this incredible path. So
because it doesn't do any good to reach your goals and have. Not have psychological well-being.
No, exactly.
I mean, what's that about?
I mean, look at how many people we lost, to suicide this last few years that had everything. They had fame, wealth, and anything you could want. But if they didn't have that, or didn't recognize their own innate well-being that resides in all of us, then what's it all worth?
That's right.
So.
Well, Del, thank you. Thank you for joining me. This is such a fascinating conversation, and I hope people will connect with you and have their own conversations with you.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I'd love to get this message out. It's just life-changing, literally.
And anything like that's so helpful. I really hope people will get in touch with you and talk to you about this.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for joining us today. And you can also speak to me. You can contact me at Limit Free Life, and if you have any challenges or want to take some conversations we've had further, please get in touch with me at michelle@limitfreelife.com. And we are here on Wednesdays every week. So thanks for listening, and please come back next week. Important messages I have to share with the world about the work that I do is that your work is yours to create. This is your piece of art that you can create in your life, and there's really nothing stopping you. Overall, most of us can learn what we need to learn and figure out what we need to figure out and create that fabulous career or business that we dream about. And there's really no reason to think that you can't. My name is Michelle Perkins, and I am the CEO and founder of a company called Limit Free Life. And I help men and women to make dramatic change in their lives so that they can have the fulfillment, fun, and financial prosperity that they have always wanted to find through their work. The main services I offer through Limit Free Life are one-on-one private coaching, group coaching, trainings and seminars, and business consulting. My signature service is one-on-one coaching over a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, even a year. It really allows a person to decide on an outcome that they desire, and then for us to work together to really achieve that outcome in full. The type of clients that I typically work with are professional men and women who are driven to do more, who might be entrepreneurs, but also career professionals who work in organizations who are really looking to do more with their lives and very open to thinking in new ways about what they're doing and who are willing to take responsibility, do the work, make some changes, and who don't say I can't a whole lot. Clients up-level in a number of ways. For some, they start a business after being in the corporate world. For others, they have an existing business and they really figure out the key and the formula to making that business grow and take off. For some, it's a matter of really developing courage. And for many, it's a matter of up-leveling their view of themselves, what they're capable of, how powerful they are, what their strengths are, and where they can go in life. What I see also is that there's a spark that kind of gets lit, and that flame keeps growing within them, and there are things that they want that maybe they were reluctant to even express that they wanted, and now they just go for it. They have bigger wants and bigger dreams than they had before, and the sense that they can achieve those things. I feel very strongly that money beliefs are foundational to developing a business that can scale and grow and become the business that you want it to be, whatever level of success that is. And for people who feel stuck or their business isn't going the way they want, a lot of times it comes back to some of these money beliefs. So as a certified money mindset coach, I have the training to help people understand where their hidden money beliefs are either interfering in their lives or businesses or coming into play in some fashion in all the decisions that they're making, both in their business and in their life. The overall mission behind my work is to help people love their work, to find satisfaction, fulfillment, fun, and also to be financially prosperous in what they're doing. That combination to me is a perfect recipe for making work a great part of your life. And so that's my vision, is for people to see work and money as allies in their life and things they can lean on so that they have something that makes them feel important and something that gives them a place to go to develop a sense of identity and purpose and meaning in the world. My greatest hope for my clients is that they will develop a holistic relationship with work, money, and life, and there won't be this separation where they go to work and then they live their life after work, and they will develop work or businesses that they love, they look forward to going to, and they give them the freedom and the income and the happiness that they're looking for in their life.